I want to know how you got into hairstyling in the first place.
The dumbest thing. But basically, there's this movie, Ek Main Hoon Aur Ek Tum. Yeah, Kareena Kapoor is a hairstylist. I've not even seen the movie. I've watched that song that she's in a subway and she's having fun and she's surfing. And it just seemed like, wow, hairstylists have fun, I guess. And the first thing I've looked up on the internet is a hairstyling course.
Welcome to the Sum of Everything podcast, where we discuss a little bit of a lot of topics, ranging from spirituality to finance and everything in between. I'm your host, Aishwarya, a serial hobbyist with an unquenchable thirst for learning, especially through new experiences. In this podcast, we will scratch every itch of curiosity, explore various perspectives, step out of our comfort zone, and experience some of everything. Because after all, we are just that, a sum of all our experiences. So, let's dive right in.
Hello, and welcome back to the Sum of Everything podcast. Today is another episode in the celebration of the month of March as Women's Empowerment Month. And we have today on our show a wonderful guest, someone that I trust exclusively with my hair, the CEO, founder, and creative director of Curl Up and Dye Hair Studio. Please welcome Isha.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Hey, listeners, this is Aishwarya from the future, and I just wanted to pop by in and say that some of this recording, some parts of this episode might be a little difficult to hear because there was some problem, some technical glitches at the time we were recording, and we came to know of that only later. But I promise you that for those who stick on, it is a wonderful episode. Isha is an amazing guest, and she has given us such pearls of wisdom that it would be a real shame to miss it. So, for those who are interested in curly hairstyling and also specifically how to be a kick ass entrepreneur, stick on and do forgive us for the not so perfect parts of this recording. Okay, back to the episode.
Well, hi, Isha. I'm so glad you've agreed to be a part of this episode, and I'm really looking forward to having this chat.
Expect some unexpected stuff. Very good at keeping it disciplined.
Yes. For those of you who are curious, we were having a chat right before we pressed record, and we were talking about how
If this goes well, my alternate career is going to be stand-up comedy, guys. So the hairstylist is just,
you heard it here first. But to kick off the actual point of this podcast, we've brought you on today because you have managed to successfully set up a very roaring business, if I say so myself. And
blood, sweat, and tears to get here. You have been part of the journey, you and Ananya. So both Aishwarya and Ananya have seen the business through like very, gritty times. I wouldn't say bad. It's always been good. That's the good thing about the business. It's taken blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of love, to be honest, is how we've set it up. Everyone that's been in the team and part of the team has loved their work, loved the environment, loved doing what they were doing, and loved each other more than anything. So, yeah, it's all of that that's brought us here, I guess, today.
you're right. Both you and Ananya owe your association to me because I'm the
Yes.
one who found you.
Yes, definitely.
I'm the one who found you. So I'm glad I made this all happen. But let's take a step back. Before Curl Up and Die was what it was, mm, I want to know how you got into hairstyling in the first place. How did you decide that this is what you wanted to do with your career? Because it's not your traditional career choice when you come from a quintessential Bengali family like you do.
Yeah, so if for those of you listening, my background in education is in engineering, like every topic in Harry. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 18, so I was pretty good with maths and studies and all. So I was like, why not? I guess I went and got into engineering. the more time I spent over there, I guess I realized that like I don't want to sit. It wasn't about the subjects or anything, but it's just that I realized that I'm not the kind of person that can spend my entire life sitting in front of a computer. I used to get very anxious in the labs that were 2 hours, irritate everybody else, and like try to find my way out of college, out of classroom so that I can move around. So that's something I had in my mind, and this is going to be kind of dumb, but basically at the end of third year, I knew I wanted to move out. I wanted to move abroad because I had a lot of NRI friends and they were all from the Gulf region, and it seemed pretty easy and accessible to move to the Gulf, even not with a lot of money, because like a lot of people had plans of masters and this and that, which meant like big ass loans coming from our kind of background, which didn't seem feasible at the point, but Gulf seemed feasible. And then I knew that engineering wouldn't really take me there because, like, when you do engineering, you're one of millions. And even if you have a 9 pointer, there's another 500,000 with a 9 pointer. You know, like if you're not a good student, you're not going to make it there. So just being a good student is not really going to set you apart or anything. So again, the dumbest thing. But basically, that there's this movie, Ek Main Hu Aur Ek Tu.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kareena Kapoor is
Yeah.
a hairstylist. I've not even seen the movie. I watched that song that she's in a subway and she's having fun and she's surfing and her boyfriend's an architect. And it just seemed like, wow, hairstylists have fun, I guess. And the first thing I've looked up on the internet is a hairstyling course. And there seemed to be one in Bangalore. And then I did some checkup on it. It was globally recognized. So the same diploma they do offer in 18 to 20 other countries. So it seemed like a decent option. It was a little expensive, but I had the money, like half the money to do it myself. I thought I'll ask my parents for the other half. Bengali parents in general are very pro extracurricular activities. So they'll be very into like getting you to learn stuff as long as they know it's not your career choice. So when I first said I wanted to do hair, my mom and dad were like, yeah, yeah, sure, whatever. My dad was a little iffy because it was at the end of my third year and I chose to do it instead of my placement training. So I chose not to sit for that. But the catch is if you don't sit for that, you don't get to sit for placements also. So that was a little stressful for my dad, I guess. But then they also had confidence in me ki acha theek hai, kar legi job even if it's not through college. I didn't put it across as a career shift or a change. I just said it's something I want to do. So they were okay with it. And then as it built, I guess they saw me take an interest. There have been points later when I had to take it up as a serious job. They didn't never stop me. Like my parents have always been really supportive. But my dad has straight up told me till my business actually stabilized, they've been worried about it typically as parents would be because as parents, they want to see stability and security for a person, right? Like when you do college and then do MBA and then get a job or whatever, they can project like, okay, in 3 years, she'll make this much money. In 5 years, she can buy a house. In 6 years, 7 years, she'll do this and that and whatever. Like there's a career path that they can project for us, which is completely out of syllabus when it comes to careers that they don't even know are careers. Like it was the opposite for them. Ki, like what kind of people will you be around? Will your brain even get engaged? Will you be interested in your job? But they've accepted it as they've seen it evolve. So yeah, that's how my career switched, I guess.
And for listeners, if you're listening, Isha's Great Dane, Ivy, Princess Ivy, she's a darling and she just cannot be kept quiet. So
Of
we've
course not,
just
she's a princess.
she's she's been allowed to be a part of this recording as well. So yeah, okay. All right, that's a very interesting career journey.
Kareena Kapoor. Had fun. That's why I became a hairstylist.
TLDR, Isha chose hairstyling because she was inspired by Kareena Kapoor.
Like, man, who are you?
But this is a very interesting point because the most insignificant of things
Yeah.
could somehow put you on the right path to what is going to be your life
Yeah.
journey. And I don't think I'm wrong in saying that you literally found what you were made for.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so that's how you became a hairstylist. And I'm guessing the fact that you are a curly girl yourself is what pushed you into focusing your expertise on curly hair.
Kind of. So basically, the first 2 years of my career, I was in Dubai. I worked over there. That time it was pretty generic. I worked in normal salons, but there was no attention or, difference in service or in approach given to curly hair. It didn't really exist. But around COVID is when I started out on my own after I came back from Dubai. I didn't take up a job. I used to freelance as a bridal stylist and also take on my own clients and stuff. So that time when I used to do my haircuts and hair colors and all, I wasn't compelled to say what my manager or my company wanted me to say. I wasn't compelled to blow dry someone's hair. So if people were open, I started treating their hair how it had to be treated. Of course, it helped that I'm a curly girl. It also helped a lot that at around the same time, curly hair brands were picking up. So Curla, Parata, all of these guys started advertising around the same time. So there was increasing awareness in the market as well. And people started asking that, okay, like clearly my hair's curly and this and that. And I remember I had around like 20, 30 reviews, but even then people would find me on Google because they were curly hair specific. The curly hair community is also a pretty strong community because I guess like the pain of having the hair and not knowing how to deal with it, at least a few years back, brought people together. So that's how I guess it built that there was a need more than me wanting to do anything around it. There was an actual need in the market and I just knew how to cater to the need. It
Right.
wasn't intentional. And of course, the name being Curl Up and Dye helped.
Actually, that's interesting. How did you come up with Curl Up and Dye as a name for your
some
salon?
random shit like that. And at the full stop, me and my friends used to eat Chinese food and lie in the bed. And I used to sing Rolling in the Deep, and I used to be like, all of us will curl up and die someday like this.
That that's so funny because it
Yeah.
is one of the most innovative names I've ever
Yeah.
come across. And it's
Yeah,
so
so
apt
I
for
thought of it long back, like much before I was even a hairstylist. I used to make jokes saying I'll curl up and die, I'll curl up and die. And then when I had to make a brand name, like I forced myself to think of another name and I couldn't. Like I was stuck for 3 months saying, you can do a little more serious than that. Not everything in life is a joke. But I was like, no man, this is too good. I can't let it go. And I'm glad I did it. I'm very glad I did it.
absolutely because it
Yeah.
is such a unique name.
Exactly up my alley. Like it describes the business and the personality and everything perfectly. And of course, like the curly hair niche is brought out
Yeah.
intentionally. So yeah.
And for
So
those listening, Curl Up and Dye is curl up and DYE, as in dyeing your hair. So it's all about the hair. So that's really cool because I have seen your journey from that small, Barsati,
yeah.
1 BHK in Koramangala to the salon that you have today in Indranagar. And it's been quite a journey. And I'm sure you faced your fair share of ups and downs during this time. Can you talk to us about what that journey has been like?
So definitely the build as a business owner has been more, tough for me because it was never intentional. I never intended to start a business. There was no strategy made. There was no plan. There was no, whatever. Excel to follow. There was no projection month on month. It was like I was just doing what I wanted to make money, and then it grew from there. And then you remember Justine, she found me saying she wants to learn from me. I was like, okay, great, I guess. Like, come and like, I remember how informally we started in terms of money, payments, and all of that. Even when Ananya started, like the one thing I always knew is that I don't want to handle Instagram and marketing myself. Like, I hate that shit. But yeah, so it just grew from there. Like, I kept doing one thing after the other. It was more of survival and firefighting for a very long time. Again, there were not many fires, but it was that kind of approach. So I think the challenge was to actually become a business owner when I wasn't prepared to be one. Like whether it was as an employer or as someone who would sit down and make sheets and keep records and this and that. Because I just wanted to cut hair. The other thing is like I was really young when I started this. So a lot of good advice that I've gotten from the people around me, I've just been like, that shit, dude, I know what I'm doing because it was working. Like I'm making money, I'm having clients, and month on month I'm making profits. So I think the biggest challenge was me to get a structure and a system in place because I don't come from that kind of like an MBA or a BBA. My blind spot in terms of business was really huge. I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I now know the value of planning your cash flow, right? Like I now know the value of planning your investments because like again from running when everything was small it was okay, but when things started growing I've run it with the same kind of passion, and because of that like I've burned. Like I've lost a bit of money, I've lost a bit of time. I don't regret any of that. Like I think experience and real life is the best teacher that you can have, especially in these situations. I wouldn't have it another way. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I probably would do it exactly like this. But yeah, over time, I think learning how to be a business owner and make this a business instead of a passion project is what has been the challenge and is still the challenge. And yeah, it's service industry, so it's a little shitty still. Like you gotta meet new people every day. People are not always the pleasantest. 99% of our clientele is good, but it's that 1% that puts you off, that will put you off for the entire month, you know. So that's always a challenge. Teaching other people how to deal with that is a challenge as well. You have to keep constantly telling people to drop their egos, drop their own expectations and this and that and stand and work. So being able to do that yourself versus being able to convey that. And that's one of the main things you will know as a brand that I want to keep going, that there has to be love, there has to be understanding, there has to be space. And if you're not able to do that, it's okay. Like it's okay to say no, it's okay to not do the job, don't do a bad job. Really inculcating that is what really takes a lot of effort. Everything else falls into place. Like anybody can cut hair, anybody can receive calls, but how do you do it right? And how do you keep consistently doing right is what's the challenge, I would say.
Interesting. So I've seen you grow from a one-person business to now you have 4 or 5 employees under. Oh, eight.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Eight.
Wow. 8 employees under you and 8 and growing,
Yeah.
which I am so excited about. So what I want to know is what have you learned in terms of handling people? Like handling the business is one thing,
Yeah.
but what has been your biggest learning in terms of handling people?
Um, so you know me personally, I'm a very nice person. And from being nice, I think I've become unprofessional because like I'm not able to hold people accountable. Like if you don't do your job, it's okay. I understand. You know, like those things have happened. If you come half an hour late, I understand. If you have to go 1 hour early, I understand. But because of those things, the system has gotten volatile and out of place. And my biggest challenge and learning has been that uh, being sturdy, not strict, not harsh, just sticking to the rules, sticking to the system, and holding people accountable for what they're doing and where they are is necessary, not just for me, even for them. Like I would say, in a few situations, I've been a bad employer because I've been a really good person. You know, you got to be professional, you got to draw lines, you got to draw boundaries, both in terms of my employees and in terms of vendors and businesses that I deal with. So I think my biggest learning is that there's value in being professional. You got to have like systems and boundaries and a stable foundation in place and stick to that. Even if it comes across as being unfair or whatever, it is fair. If you've made a fair system, it's going to be fair. You don't need to go above and beyond it to be nice in business. It doesn't help to be nice at all. That's been my learning. It's better to be professional, especially as a woman, especially as a young girl, whatever.
Okay.
You're going to be swayed here and there. It's going to be taken advantage of. I can see people taking me less seriously because I look younger. I don't look 30 as well, right? Like people assume that I'm 25, 24, whatever it is, and treat you a certain way. They'll just not reply, not do this and that, like not take you seriously.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people have been shocked when they're talking to me and they'll be like, how old are you? How old are you? Just because I'm smart. So definitely like being professional has what has been my lesson in terms of, people and handling people.
So being an entrepreneur in itself is a very challenging prospect, let alone when you are younger, let alone when you have, other things on your plate. But has it been more challenging, would you say, as a woman specifically?
Uh, See, the thing is, I'm mostly referring with women itself because the clientele is like that. So I don't think it would be less challenging as a man or anything.
In this
In some-
particular industry?
yeah, in this particular industry. So again, like I think what has been challenging in my line of work is the unprofessionality. And I don't think it's just because I'm a woman, it's a combination of everything. Industry plus young girl.
Yes.
Like young also is a very this thing. I think more than being a woman, it's being young. Like a young boy also in the same situation would have faced the same thing. They just take you less seriously because you're 25 or whatever.
Right.
Like I've been underpaid to my face. I've said 7.5K to somebody. And then she said, make it less, make it less. And I'm like, okay, I can make it 7. And she stood in front of me and she sent 6. And she's like, it's okay now. And I'm like, no, it's not at all okay. But shit like this happens all the time. And I've seen it happen to other people that are also young, like taking
Right.
less seriously more than a woman. But again, other things as a woman have affected me being in this industry. Let's say, like being a hairstylist, people have always asked me why I dress like this, why I don't wax. It's expected of me. And again, you know what kind of person I am. I just like to be myself. It doesn't matter whether I wax or don't wax. I can cut your hair amazingly. It's not okay for you to ask that, especially a modern day woman. Like if your mom or my mom asked me that, I'd cut them some slack, knowing they don't know any better than to ask personal questions to younger persons. But someone in their like 30s, mid 40s, professional, clearly knows not to trigger insecurities, not to ask
Right.
people about these things, will still ask. So on a day-to-day basis, being a girl in this kind of business and facing bullshit from other women like this is what was more annoying, I would say. It wasn't necessary. Like I don't need to justify I'm not waxing.
Yeah.
And then there's been like weird shit, like some lady has come and been like, I want only a guy to cut my hair because hair doesn't grow when women cut it. And I'm like, where do you from?
Oh my God.
Yeah, and again, the challenge is being able to deal with these people also with a smile.
Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
here I go around telling everybody that, go to Isha because she has green fingers and my hair
Yeah,
has
yeah.
grown every time.
Yeah, not just me, everyone here would like. I think it's the intention when you cut hair. It's not like green fingers, red fingers, and all.
Yeah.
But like, you really want someone else's hair to do well. I really want you to be healthy. I want your hair to grow. I want you to look nice when I work on you. And I can guarantee that about all my stylists over here as well. And it's not just us, it's anywhere where people like their job and they actually care about what they're doing, whether that's putting out a marketing post or creating a legal document or giving a haircut. When you actually truly put your heart into your work, it shows. I guess it shows in terms of hair growth for you guys when we cut your hair.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I think that would be the biggest blessing as a client, right? When you go
Yeah.
in trusting somebody to cut your hair and give it a good shape and whatever, you want it to grow back, especially because we are all curly girls.
Yeah.
We're super, super attached to our hair.
Exactly.
It's a lot to manage. It takes a long time to grow.
Yeah.
It's not easy. So,
Yeah.
like, that is something we come with some kind of an implicit trust.
Yeah. The other day only I had a client, see, and she hadn't even given me instructions on what to do. She's been coming to me for 3 years now. So, like, while I started cutting her hair, she's like, I don't think you realize how much we guys trust you. And I'm like, oh, trust me. I know exactly how much you trust me. And I never for 1 second take it for granted.
Granted.
I teach my whole team that, like, that's the main thing, that they're trusting you with not just their hair, but like their life. Because your image depends, like, what you look like, right? Like, you may or may not be attached to it. You may or may not think it's a big deal, but you get a bad job, you'd realize how, like, fuck, your whole self image and self confidence can get because of your hair. So it's never just hair. Like, it's way deeper than that. And, like, for sure, I treat it that way, and I make sure everyone in my brand treats it that way too.
Honestly, that is so, so true. And that is something I think is the reason that I keep coming back personally. I'm sure a lot of your clients keep
Yeah.
coming back. And one of the reasons that I keep recommending you to everybody, right? I remember I had recommended you to a friend of mine who had, really like 4C kind of hair. And he had never had the kind of haircut that or a wash that he had. He came and had a great experience, came back and told me that I have never had my hair treated so beautifully.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so carefully and with such attention being given to it. And I think that's one of the reasons that we keep coming back to curl up and dye. And yeah, and I'm sure that's the same, that's echoed with all of your regular clients. So, okay. Now I want to ask you, I'm sure there are a lot of women who are wanting to either enter into this space specifically or into business in general. Okay, having gone through this for so many years now, what advice would you give to women who are hoping to be entrepreneurs?
Okay. The main thing would be like, in general, with women, with a lot of things that we do, I would say self confidence through the roof is what you need. Because, like, both my dad and my sister actually have told me that I'm toxically confident. Like, they're like, you're not scared of anything. You're not scared of like this thing. I'm like, yeah, like my dad and my sister are telling me, bad
Yeah.
things or coming back with feedback, but it seems like negativity at some point. You know what I'm saying? Will you be able to do it? This seems like too much of a risk. You're not serious enough and you're too nice to your employees, etc., etc. But in any given situation, like as a woman, you'll have yourself holding yourself back. You'll have other people trying to hold yourself back. You're on a timeline of marriage, this, that, whatever. Even if you never plan to get married, we just have this weird timeline always in our head too, right? Everyone, even career oriented women, there's just a ticking clock in your head. So, with all of those variables, going into something like business seems like a very big risk or very big step to take. I would say, like, self confidence through the roof. Nobody else is going to believe in you as much as you need to be believing in yourself. Like, what you see, whatever your vision is, whatever your this thing is, nobody's going to be able to see it like that or feel it the way you feel it. Unless you have passion of that sort, don't start a business. Like I think I saw a movie, but like some dialogue Paresh Raval had in the movie said, business ke liye na gaan mein aag chahiye. You literally need to have fire up your ass to be able to pull off something like this. Because there's a lot of options of careers and what we can do. And even if like you don't want to be in jobs, you can be self-employed without running a business. I think that distinction also needs to be clear to people nowadays, that there's a difference between like freelance self-employment and business. In business, you're responsible for other people. You lose money, you pay other people before you get paid and this and that. So you need to have that kind of like grit and passion. It's not just about not being employed under somebody. Like you should be able to sacrifice yourself completely, put everything else in front of you. And again, with this like whole startup culture, I'll make it big in 2 years, this and that. I don't think people realize what a business actually means. It's been 5, 7 years and I still have to put all my time and energy into my business still. And like, I'm not saying it's always going to be like that. It has gotten comfortable. It has grown and reached wherever I wanted it to reach. I'm very happy with my business. It still needs full time involvement. So that's another thing I don't think people realize. But yeah, like I would say it's not easy, but it is definitely rewarding if you do it right.
Wow, that's really, really good advice. Yeah, you're right. I've spoken to a few people who don't realize just how demanding running a business can be
Yeah.
because they think that by running a business, they'll escape the 9 to 5.
No, you sign up for the
24/7.
I
Yeah.
work 28 hours that don't exist. Even in my sleep, I'm having dreams about my business, even days that don't exist. I'm working like, I think it had been 3 years till I took a break this year. Ananya's gotten dreams of how burnt out I am. That's how
Oh, yeah.
intense it gets. Yeah, actually, for real. That's how
Yeah.
intense it gets. I had a 2.5 years burnout and my business was doing the best at the time. I've made profits. My income's doubled every year in the last 2 years in Touchwood. But that's the time that I've been the most burnt out because to do that, it took everything that I had: personal life, love life, dogs, energy, everything, mental health going for a toss, all of it. But I have a business to show for it. And it's not easy to survive that. Like, that's why I say not everyone has the grit to do it because a business is demanding. Self employment is different and a little, easier, regulatable. Once you sign up for the responsibility of other people, you got to keep it going. Again,
Yeah.
like, I could have fired half my team and made more profit, but I'm not going to do that. Now I know it's their livelihood.
Yeah.
So much before I can think of my salary, I'm just like, okay, I have to pay out these guys a salary so that their lives keep running.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you'll like end up hiring people that need it more than you do, especially in this line of work. So there's more pressure. Like most of my employees, like 3 of my employees are single moms. So, I think of their children much before I think of myself. I'm just like, okay, their payout has to go on time. that sense of how the company is doing and stuff. But yeah, so it's that, I guess, you know, realizing that it's way more than yourself when it's a business. It's not about you, and like you don't know when it's going to come back to you. Of
Yeah.
course, there'll be profits. Of course, there'll be like, I'm still saying this. I'm 7 years in and I'm still saying, like, I've had another brand owner ask me, do you think we never make money? And I'm like, I hope to make money. That's why I'm doing this. But yeah, it takes a lot before you get to the comfortable places.
So that's definitely the point to keep in mind. Whew, that is quite a bit. But okay, last part before we end. Holi is right around the corner, and I know that for a lot of people playing Holi, hair care goes for a toss. So, do you have any tips on hair care for normal hair, curly hair?
See, the only risk with the body colors would be your hair getting dry, and B, if you have like light colored hair, your bleached out hair, and all, it's gonna catch the body colors. So oil the shit out of your hair and go to play bowling. I know you look like a chomo, but like, live with it. That's the only way that you can protect it from the body color ka damage. But other than that, like, yeah, just deep condition before and after, and you're good to go, I guess. Just make sure the color doesn't penetrate your hair, and the only way to do that is like oiling. And like whatever organic color, not organic color, it's not meant for your hair, so it's gonna do something bad
Yeah.
anyway. So just oil it so that nothing goes through it.
Okay, you heard her. Oil your hair so that nothing goes through it. And before playing Holi, hair care first. But I guess that brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode, Isha. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. Would you like to tell our listeners how they can make appointments with Curl Up and Die and how they can find you on social media?
Hopefully, we're finding you if our ads are having well, but we're on Google, Instagram, and it's called Call Up and Die Hair Studio. Our website is called www.curlupanddie.in. You can go directly there, make website bookings, or our phone number will be listed on Google. You can call us and we'll help you book.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Isha. It has been a wonderful, wonderful time chatting with you. And before Ivy brings down the roof, let's.
Also, it has been the introduction to my stand-up comedy career, guys. I will be back for an episode of Jokes with Isha. I'm gonna think of a better name, better than Curl Up and Die also.
Come on, I think Curl Up and Die is a stand up name.
So my stand-up needs to have a better name. We shall overcome. हम होंगे कामयाब.
Hum honge kamyab. And with that, listeners, I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we loved recording it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.